Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. There are three characters I'm just going to sit there and tell y'all off jump that was working my goddamn nerves today. Okay? And I think y'all can sit there and guess the first two. Okay? Y'all can sit there and guess the first two. Third one was Carly. We're going to start off with yeah, you guessed it, Trina. I don't even know who I was actually watching today, right? I have no idea who the hell I was actually watching in this episode. So she starts off and, with Ava talking about the divorce of her parents and Cynthia saying that there was a lot of outside forces that was interfering with their love and this, that, and the third. Okay, whatever. Sitwell, Jordan, and Marcos come in, right? Looking around the gallery, whatever, and at some point, Sitwell just not Sitwell, Marcos just kind of disappears. And Ava is not there talking to Sitwell. So Jordan's like, why don't you sit there and show me some art? I think I'm finally ready to sit there and, buy some art or whatever. Now when Jordan first walked into the room, Trina was sitting there giving Jordan the illest resting bitch face I've ever seen. And I'm just like, what the fuck happened to this character? But no. It gets worse, right? So she pretty much kind of just lays into her. She's not there saying, well, she's the cause of her parents and that they're divorcing. Now, the last time she did something like that, I was like, okay, maybe she's not there doing this because, if their parents aren't married, they may have to sit there and testify against each other. No. This went way past that. It's almost like she forgot the reasons of why they broke up in the first place. She turns into this bratty ass little girl where I'm just like, at the end of the day, your parents are splitting up. It sucks. It is what it is. Stay out of grown folks' goddamn business. And she's all like, well, my daddy loves me. My dad loves me. And he listens to me. And, you're never going to sit there and be in. The look on Jordan's face, I think even she was sitting there looking at a new character like, who is this? I don't know what they did with this character, what they did to this character, Trina. But, like, you managed to turn her into among the most unlikable characters in this show. I mean, let's be honest. People are already not happy with this character as far as, let's be honest, her storyline was great when she was with Spencer and she had Esme as an enemy. After that, her character pretty much kind of became irrelevant. At least they gave her something to do, but this wasn't what people actually wanted. It was like, this storyline isn't really that great. They don't really care about Cobb. And now you turn her into this bratty ass nosy busybody where at the end of the day stay out of grown folks business. You turned her into that. I had to take a good 2 seconds before I just came on here and trust me, the other version of me was not going to be really kind. um and now we're going to sit there and talk to Miss Busybody, known as Stella Henry. When she knew, when she was sitting there talking to Curtis and she knew that Portia was pregnant, and she pretty much is sitting there saying that they need to stay together because of the baby. She's like, well, y'all getting split up or whatever, or y'all divorcing doesn't sit well with me. Who cares about your feelings? Like dead ass says, who gives a damn about your feelings? This isn't about you. This is about Portia and Curtis and committing to taking care and raising a baby, but they don't have to sit there and live under the same roof to do it. Maybe this is an old school Because I'm just sitting there thinking, this is an old school way of looking at it, where it's like, two parents, you got to stay together because it's a baby. You got to stay together because it's a baby. A lot of times, you'll sit there and see that kids pick up on tension a lot more than people think. And staying together for a child, you think is helping, it's just generally ruining it. And then you just repeat that damn cycle when the child grows up. You have kids of their own, they do the exact same thing. So I'm like, I don't think that she was even really Smith respecting his boundaries when he was like, listen, I get it. And she just kept hammering on and on and on and on and on. Like, I get that you love them and you think that them being together is going to work for the baby. But if he says, and they basically sit there and say that they're done, that means that they're done. Okay? That's the end of the conversation. I don't understand why I actually had to sit through 5 more minutes of her griping and whining about the whole thing. Okay, so let's get to this whole arraignment thing. By the way, Dawn's a fucking prick. I'm just gonna sit there and say right now, Dawn's an absolute goddamn prick, right? I was cool with him doing some community service or whatever, because like Rocco said to Gio, I do that stuff anyway, so it is what it is. Um, and I think it's good for him. He needs to understand consequences. This is one of the things that Justine said to him, that like, it's a pattern, and if he, actually faces this whole thing, he'll learn, actually have consequences. Um, when she was there talking to Rick, and Rick was like, well, she wanted a year of community service. Rick was like, how about no? Well, I think it was Rick that introduced community service. Justine, they got it down to 6 months. Exactly remember who said what at some point, but they got it down to 6 months. Um, Rocco's not there telling Gio, don't come forward. It's going to be a lot worse. You're an adult. Let me just sit there and take the hit. Like I said, I'm already doing community service anyway, and most likely that's what it's going to be since he's a minor. So they all get down to the courthouse. Dante Smith there telling lawyers, like, I don't think this is going to look good. You being here, politically, the city needs you, but she's like, hey, listen, my grandson needs me, so I'm here, I'm staying, and then that's it. Britt gets down there to the courthouse with Nathan and everything. And, before Justine heads to court, Dalton comes in. Dalton's like, hey, listen, I got some stuff to sit there and tell you. So everyone's at the courthouse, and when Justine walks in and she sits down, she looks at him a couple of times. Sonny's like, there's something that's off, you know. Now Rick was not there telling Rocco, hey, listen, I cut a deal. It's going to work out. So, just follow my lead. We're going to be good. Right? Because he really thought, they had a conversation, they cut a deal and everything like that. The minute that the court starts, Justine just surprises everybody. It's like, no, that plea deal's off. We got new evidence going, and basically sit there and say that there is photos of destruction of property. There was hazardous material that could have hurt a bunch of people or killed a bunch of people. So everyone's sitting there like, what the, and again, you got Dante, you got Lulu. And so, there's a point where Laura's not telling Sonny, yo, they set him up. Because if that was the case, Dalton would have sat there and told me that, the night that it wound up happening. So, Justine is Sonny's looking at Justine, and Justine's looking a little guilty. I'm like, don't get involved with a mobster. I can't blame Justine because Justine's not there doing her job. Marcos is there, and Marco tells it. Well, yeah, it's bad. Like, it's a lot worse, because they didn't want the cops not there snooping around, and Dalton being Dalton with his fragile male ego being hurt, he decided to sit there and do what he did. Um, I feel like Sitwell was trolling me. There's a point where Sitwell was like, "Hey, listen, Lucas, my son is together, so you think there'll be a little bit of peace between maybe me and Sonny and maybe me and Carly?" And Abe just looked at him like, yeah, no, especially with Sonny. Those peers go, he's gonna be hot, he's gonna be angry, he gonna be pissed. Um, I was like, bro, you trolling? Okay, so Lucas tells Carly and Jocelyn that he's moving into Windermere, and Carly just lashes out and goes off, and practically is like, "This is a bad idea. This is a terrible idea. You don't need to do it." And then she gets to a point where she is like, "Marcos is just using you." Um, they go back and forth about the whole Sitwell thing, right? Um, Especially at a point where it's like, what do you snip there? Like, Sitwell kidnapped Jason, Anna, and Lucky. What do you snip there saying that they're liars and stuff? And of course, Lucas is like, you do realize that Marcos got kidnapped by Sonny, right? And this is where Carly's like, you're not going to sit there and start comparing Sonny and Sitwell. In all reality, you really can't. But the point is, he felt hurt. He was like, so you're sitting there saying the only reason why Marcos is actually dating me is to get to Sonny and his family, or Sonny, and that I'm only loving him, not because I actually love him or have feelings for him, but because I want to sit there and prove something. Now, maybe on some level, okay, because he has been kind of hesitant, he might be right about as far as like him proving that Marcos is more than a rebound, and everything like that. She may be right, and that's when Carly was like, "Listen, you can be mad at me, but I'd much rather sit there and fight for you and fight for your life. You be mad at me and you're alive than me to sit there and shut my mouth and go along with it." While Jocelyn the entire time is like, well, listen, he needs our support. Let's support him if this is what he wants to do. Because, she's getting orders from Jack to sit there and support it. So after Lucas leaves and goes to Ava and hugs her and tells her, thank you for believing me and stuff, Jocelyn's like, hey, listen, if you want, I could try to smooth things over. Because Carly was like, okay, I did kind of go OD, and Jocelyn's like, I could smooth things over, and Carly's like, don't bother because you never disappointed me more than right now. And I'm like, so wait, your daughter disappointed you because she didn't sit there and follow the great Carly Corinthos lead? And I'm not calling her Spencer, by the way, just like I'm not calling um Elizabeth Baldwin. She's always gonna be a goddamn weapon. But there's a point where Carly's like, you out of all people should know how dangerous Sitwell is. Josh has that look like, huh, what? And I think she may sit there and at some point put two and two together and realize that Mom Dukes knows or suspects that she is a WSB agent. Um, I'm not gonna lie. That scene was really somewhat gut wrenching. That scene was gut wrenching when Rocco kind of realized like he can't make bail, he's gonna be remanded and everything like that. Nathan was there with him, just like, hey, listen, I got you, whatever. Um, and it's the sad thing, he wanted to get back at Laura. An apathetic coward used a kid to get back at Laura. Like, wow, that's a whole new level of just some low life cowardly shit right there. Now, Gio and Emma is going back and forth about who's to blame, and she's blaming herself, and they kind of both realize that listen, this ain't right. We can't sit there and just let Rocco take the fall. And now I'm like, they're gonna have to come clean because now they were all in that room. Okay. So they can all sit there and be like, hey, listen, nobody broke anything. Okay, Rocco made a noise. We dipped out, but nobody like start breaking stuff. So they're gonna have to come forward now. And you see in the previews that Gio tells Brooklyn about, her part in the whole. I mean, his part in the whole thing. Whew. This was well, they weren't sleeping today. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, like I said, I don't know what they're doing with Trina, but like whatever they're doing with Trina, this new version ain't working. Like it is not working at all. Anyway, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that is generally about it. Might have been some small stuff here and there that I kind of didn't really go over, but that's the general gist of the episode. Now, if I miss anything, I will be sitting there talking about it all tonight. Um, I had a disclaimer ready to sit there and say, and I just totally forgot about it. So, oh well. Um, anyway, with that being said, I'm going to go. I want to thank you for watching, and I will sit there and see you on the next video and hopefully next stream tonight.